Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Mary Payton with All About STEM Radio. I come to you every Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time from Globe Life Park there in Texas on Fishbowl Radio Network. And most of my teacher friends there at home are off this week for the Thanksgiving holiday. But here on the Big Island, we are still teaching until Wednesday. But, I am excited about having two awesome
Thank
people
you.
on the show today. People have been asking, when are you going to have somebody from Hawaii on the show? When are you going to have somebody? And I'm like, I keep asking, and I've had a few people, but I've been begging some of my teachers because, hey, they are some of my best collaborators, and they have put up with me and have shared with me, and I am extremely thankful for having them by my side and their support. So, one teacher, he's back and forth working with kids. Another teacher is walking to her car. So I'm waiting for everybody to get set, get settled, because here it's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we just got out of school. But you know, we got to keep our young men and women not in line but involved. So I'm going to tell you what I did today while Heather gets to her car and gets seated. I've been making bridges. I've been working on bridges with my babies. And so today, one of my students, he was like, Miss, you said you were going to test my bridge today. Can you test my bridge? Because I want to record it for my dad. I said, yes. So I did his bridge, and his bridge held 60 pounds. So I've got to get some more weight from the gym because I kind of want to break his bridge, but I probably won't because he wants to take it home and test it with some weights that he has at home. And the bridge only had to hold 10 pounds. Another bridge that we worked on today, that I tested today, uh, kind of did a similar thing because they had toothpicks and popsicle sticks. And I've never seen students do this. Most of them, you give them the glue, you give them the materials, and they'll just make triangles and do whatever they have to do to glue them together. Both of these students drilled little holes in their bridges, and they stuck the toothpicks in the holes to act as kind of like nails or screws. And I think that's what helped with the support. The second bridge held 35 pounds. And then I had another bridge that held 15. I've got one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 bridges left to test today. So I'm excited. But I'm excited about these two teachers that I have that's coming on today. The first one is Heather Simon. She is our ELA teacher, and people are like, ELA? What does that have to do with STEM? People don't understand. All of us STEM people, we write, and we write a lot. Without these ELA teachers, there is nothing that we could do. And then my second teacher is Mr. Jesse Roberts. He is a math teacher. And I'm going to tell y'all, these are two awesome, awesome, awesome people that I could not live without. So I want Heather, will you please introduce yourself to my guest, or our guest, because this is your show.
Uh, yes, thank you, Dr. Payton. Thank you for having me on today. My name is Heather Simon. I am an ELA teacher at Kea'au Middle School on the Big Island of Hawaii. I currently teach 7th grade, but had spent the last 2 years teaching 6th grade. I have bachelor's degrees from the University of Hilo in psychology and English. and I just completed my master's degree in teaching this past May. And I am excited to be here and talk about how we do things here on the Big Island of Hawaii. And I'm also super jealous to all Dr. Payton's Texas friends that have the whole week off. That was news to me as I was walking to my car, and I was like, eh. But y'all couldn't see that because I had my mask on. So.
Oh yeah, Texas always gives them the whole week off, but I can't be jealous because I'm in Hawaii. I'm in Hawaii.
True.
Okay, we're in
True.
Hawaii.
It is 85 degrees today. No, my car says 79, so it's kind of chilly today.
And my other teacher is Mr. Roberts, but he is working with students at the time. So as soon as he looks at me and takes a break, I want him to introduce himself. So Jesse, are you ready or are you still working? Okay. Jesse, would you introduce yourself to our guest?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you, Dr. Payton. I am Miss Simon. I am Jesse Robert. I have been teaching for about 6 years. I was teaching at a different school. Like my first 4 years, it was a commute for me, but I'm glad to be back on this side at Kea'au Middle School, and I've been teaching there for 2 years now. I am originally from Kushai, Micronesia. Right off the pad after high school, I came straight to Ilu for school to further my education, and I got my bachelor's in mathematics. And right after that, I just continue on, and I earned my master's of art in teaching at Ilu as well. So aside from being a teacher, I love to serve this country despite what's going on. So I put myself into the military. So I am a reservist as an army person. And it's been about like 3 years, and I love both. I love teaching because I love working with other people, with adults, all the way down to, kids for that matter. And also, one of my hobbies is just exercising, running, sports. So that's one reason why I went to the army side, so that I can, try maintain myself. Because if I have something that I'm, working towards, then it's gonna help me more. Like if I'm not in the military, I'm probably gonna not do exercise, all of those stuff. But because of the military, I gotta do this. I have to stay fit, to keep moving up as an individual person, just aiming high always. So that's a little bit about myself. And thank you for having me, Dr. Payton.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited for this conversation. Hey, Heather, I want to ask you a quick question.
Sure.
Okay, you have been teaching ELA for the last few years. What do you see as some of the positives of some of the things that our babies do, or some of the things that you need to work with them in ELA?
Positives would be that I think as adults, we have, a general stereotype of this generation that we're teaching, and that they're very technology oriented and technologically inclined, and that they're not interested in the, quote unquote old ways of reading and writing. And one thing I have found, and I've been pleasantly surprised by, is that is absolutely not true. Well, there are still a good majority that don't necessarily enjoy reading or writing. There are many more that do. And it's been pleasantly surprising to find students that love writing so much and are so excited to do the longer and bigger writing assignments. Because, they're used to, you think they're used to Twitter and TikTok and all of the different social medias now where you can only type a couple sentences at a time. But we have a good majority of students that prefer to write longer papers and like to write stories and have never really had the outlet to do that. Challenges, probably off the bat, I would say, include that a lot of them don't know how.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of our students, particularly our students at our school, struggle with reading and writing, and I'm sure that comes from a variety of factors. Their previous education, things going on outside of school, and just interest, right? It takes a lot of time at a young age to get kids to love reading and writing, and if you can't give them something that they're interested in reading and writing, then they're going to hate it forever.
And you're right, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about in a little bit is culturally relevant skills in mathematics and in reading, and in my case, in STEM or science. Jesse, also with you, and I know I've had to deal with a couple of your students reading a math question, and I'm like, wait a minute, I answered it, but it was the wrong way. So a lot of your math is word math. So can you tell me kind of your take on some of the positives about working with seventh graders in mathematics?
Sorry, you can see me going back and forth, and
Yeah, I know.
so working with seventh graders, and I used to work with seventh graders my 4 years of teaching, and then when I came to Kea'au Middle School, I taught eighth grade, and then now I am back into seventh grade math and all that. But you're talking about reading here and there. So for me, like working with seventh graders, it's like already when you say seventh graders, it's a hard level as a student.
Oh, yeah.
Experiencing all these different changes in their lives, and the fact that they have different backgrounds with what they know, and how they comprehend things. But working with seventh graders and trying to tackle, I would like to talk about the concept of word problems. Not all, like even myself, English is not my first language, and I know a lot of these students, it's the same situation. So for me, when I worked with word problems, the first thing when I see a word problem, I say, okay, it's hard already. I'm not gonna do this. And a lot of these seventh graders, the same thing. Like when they see a word problem, they go to Mr. Robert or Mr. Marino, my co-teacher. It's hard. I cannot do it. So working with them in the concept of word problems, I try to help them the way I understand, or like I work around this. So my secret for word problems, and I talk to my students about, is I look at the lessons that we're working on, and if it's about multiplying rational numbers, and then when we working with multiplying rational numbers and looking at the word problems, I'll make a connection that, okay, the word problem is going to talk about multiplying rational numbers. So that is one thing that I try to teach my students to do, to kind of just, I would say, cheat their way around word problem, in a sense that you see the word problem, even though it's hard, but you take the time to read it and connect it with the lesson topic, and then know that it's about that. And some students are using it that way. Some students, I tell you that even like they spend the time, like read it a couple times, then they can fully understand, oh, this is what it's asking. But like at the very first, right off the bat, they'll say it's hard. But then sitting down with them and say, just try it again. Read it a couple times, just like how I did it as a student. I had to read it like multiple times to fully understand the question, because the fact that the English is not my first language. So working with these students in the seventh grade area is, one positive thing is just sharing like my approach to reading these word problems and understanding. Compare it to like somebody who's English is their first language, they read it once and they fully understand it. They went on to answering the questions.
And you're so right. Even there was a problem that I came to you with that one of your students had, and it was she was reading uh, we were doing I ready, and she was doing reading, but it was a math question that was in there saying if you were this far below sea level and you swam up to a negative this far below sea level, what would be the answer? And I'm thinking that the first number was a positive, but it was a negative. So I worked it out totally wrong. And the student said, she sat and she explained to me how I was wrong. I loved it. I loved it. She goes, now, Dr. Payton, when you read it, it says underwater. So that's a negative to begin with. And I'm like, okay. But,
And that's really good. Yeah, the key point, yeah, I tell my students is, understanding what each word means in terms of a mathematical sense. And like when we first work with those kind of problems, we noticed that a lot of students don't know, okay, when is it positive, when is it negative? Mm-hmm. So my other seventh grade teacher from the other team created this word sort, card sort kind of in a sense, but because of distance learning, it's word sort, where she input like multiple words or like situations, and students have to figure out, okay, is that go to a negative, is that a positive, or is that even zero? So we did that with the students, and hopefully that's like one of the factors that helped your student understand that, oh, if it's below sea level, it has to be negative. So I'm glad to hear that, Dr. Payton. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, but I'm excited to work with you guys. But Heather, is a couple of things we've been alluding to that I didn't understand here. Coming from Texas, a large number of our student population is English is their second language, but they're Hispanic. Here on the island, I didn't understand what a English as a second language for any of our students would be. So what student population are we dealing with English as a second language?
I honestly have not had the privilege of working with students whose first language wasn't English, based on the way our school divides our students. Mm-hmm. But to my knowledge, students living in Hawaii that do have English as their second language, for the most part, they are other Polynesian languages. Mm-hmm. As Mr. Robert had mentioned, from his home and the other islands of Micronesia, Samoan, and some Asian languages. I have had some experience in my volunteering time with students who came to us straight from China or Vietnam.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But and another question, I know Hawaii has its own language. Has that been an issue for either of y'all?
Personally, it has not been an issue for me. We do currently actually have a student who is fluent in Hawaiian but doesn't tell anybody. Remind me to share later who that is with you guys.
Okay.
And but no, I have not. Again, in my volunteering days, I was volunteering at another intermediate or middle school, and they had a student come in about halfway through the first quarter that had come from a Hawaiian immersion school and had been in Hawaiian immersion their entire life. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that they didn't know English or that English was necessarily a second language, but it wasn't their common language.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So they knew it, but not as well as they knew Hawaiian at the time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I personally have not been affected by that.
Okay. Because a lot of people.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I like, as far as I can remember, I have no issues with somebody who speaks Hawaiian, but it's still the fact that English is not the first language, so they may have hard time comprehending the questions that we're working on, especially when it comes to word problem or following directions here and there. But it's not so much of an issue with the Hawaiian language, because, and I also think that for the book that we have, the curriculum that we have, the word problem, sometimes in general, a lot of these kids have a hard time working with this because it doesn't really what they don't really relate to it. The relevancy of it is one of the factors that is making it hard for the students to work around with the word problem. So what we tend to do is, when we have the time, we look at the problems and recreate the problem, but put in like uh, things that they can relate to, like going up on the mountain, Mauna Kea, and here and there. But when we talk about like some factors, like, okay, this person went to the Six Flag and joined this ride, they don't really get that concept. But when we talk about the county fair, to make the problem relate to them, then they can, oh yeah, okay, okay. But yeah, I just want to add into that question.
And that's one of the things that I want us to discuss is cultural relevant learning for our students. But before I get there, I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, if you just joined us, this is Dr. Mary Payton with All About STEM Radio. I come to you every Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. here on Fishbowl Radio Network from Globe Life Park, Arlington. Today, I am talking with two amazing teachers, Heather Simon, who is our ELA teacher here at Kea'au Middle School, and Jesse Roberts, who is our math teacher here at Kea'au Middle School. And we are talking about, how all of us have to collaborate together, some of our students' needs, the positive things that we're having that's going on. And I'm totally, totally excited to be on their team. Jesse brought something up just before I went to, took a little break. Cultural relevance is becoming a major, major thing in education. And what are we doing to make things culturally relevant for our students? Now, you mentioned a ride at Six Flags. Now, I'm from Texas. I'm from Arlington. Six Flags is my jam, okay? But a lot of these kids don't get to do that. So what are we doing to make our writing culturally relevant for these students and our math culturally relevant for our students? So I'm going to start with Jesse on this one, Heather.
Okay. Yeah. So it's funny that you say that, because as of right now, currently we're trying to do interdisciplinary assignment, social study and math, where students are working with an historical figure that is, from Hawaii. And on the social study part, they're looking up the dates that it relates to that person. And also, on top of that, any world events that happen within the time of that person. Now, that's the social study part of that. Now, we took that into consideration, me and Mr. Marino, and we say, okay, what we can do with that, we just finish working with negative numbers and positive numbers. So we're going to create a timeline using the dates, the big years of the events that happen in the person's life or anything within that person's timeline. And then we also create zero because we all know about the great King Kamehameha.
Yes.
So we set that to be zero, where like the death of Kamehameha would be our zero for that matter. And then any events that happened before that would consider the negative numbers. And anything that happened after the death would be the positive numbers. So we put in some math calculations in there where they subtract, the peak years every year, whether it's before or after Kamehameha, by 1819, which is the death of Kamehameha. And then they get to do math in there, and it equals a negative number or a positive number. And if it's a negative number, we're going to say that as a PK. So just according to the timeline that we are all common with or know about, BC and AD. like
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people think it's before Christ and after death, but it's I know it stands for other Latin words. But we use that kind of concept where it's PK and AK, where PK is before Kamiyama and AK is after the death of Kamiyama. So students were working with that. They use the social study events with the dates, and then they calculate do some math in there, and they look at the negative numbers. So that is one way that we try to make sense of this and relate it to the students can relate to. Oh, we're working with Kamehameha or Reverend Bingham or all those historical figures that they are working with. So for the math section, that is just I just want to put that out there because that's one thing that we're currently working on, and a lot of students they like it because they can do some math, and of course they use the social study facts in there. So it's like killing two birds with one stone. Like one assignment, use it for social study and use it for math. But that is I just want to put it out there.
I mean, that's what collaborative instruction is all about. That having interdisciplinary partnerships in learning. I mean, you could have walked that over to Heather and had a writing project to go with that. So Heather, they left you out. They left you out the assignment. They left me out of the assignment because we could have built some stuff.
They tried.
Oh, they tried.
We had already started our project for this quarter, so we had to put it off till next quarter. We're going to do something with social studies.
All right.
Yeah, even next year where we can have the math, the social study, and the ELA. Like
exactly.
When I was at Yalaka Intermediate School, me and my ELA teacher wanted to do something, just to connect. But it was more of a project where my students find areas, they create their dream house, and then
and then write about it.
Of like how much like the spacing they have in their house, and then the writing portion they just write about,
Yeah, they describe it.
That. So we did that, and the kids love it because I had some kids who actually create something that I told myself one day I would want to have this blueprint and build my house out of this blueprint. So
yeah, that sounds like an awesome idea. We'll definitely have to talk about that next year.
My tiny house project, because that's the next project I got coming up is the tiny house project.
Maybe I can switch gears and use the come back to area and perimeter on to connect with
Oh yeah. Hey, Heather has gone all the way home. Now she's comfortable. I love it. Hey, that's what it's like living on an island. That's what it's like.
Yep.
Hey, Heather, I know we talk about cultural relevance in writing, but the thing that concerns me about our students, and you mentioned it earlier, is how life has changed how we write. A lot of the things we do are very short answer, text speak, that kind of thing. How are you working with our students to get them to draw out and communicate a little bit more than, like they do in the chat on the computer?
Honestly, me and my co-teacher have spent quite a bit of time just working on helping them rewrite their sentences. And it usually honestly just looks something like we take what they've written and we rewrite one to show them how to add in descriptive words or how to make it a complete sentence, because some of them still aren't very good at that. And then let them go. And for the most part, it's effective. When the next assignment comes up, we tend to get more complete sentences. And yeah, I think the nature of social media, honestly, this is changing for this generation, and they're more focused on either verbal chat like platforms or video platforms. And so in a lot of ways, as silly as it may sound to some, I think that's helping with their writing, because they're not getting that message of truncated sentences and short speech all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're more focused on making their videos and this and all of that, or just talking to each other. And we don't talk in truncated sentences often, right? I mean, we can, but you don't have a conversation without using full sentences. So I honestly think it's helping this brand of like social media that our students are, that age group is kind of stuck on right now. But yeah, it's a challenge every day for sure. It's not, I don't know, you just gotta help them and ask them, if you were going to tell me this, how would you tell me this? Because you wouldn't just say that. I wouldn't know what you were talking about. Right? And that helps a little bit, reminding them that the person reading it doesn't know what, if your mom was to read this, she doesn't know what you're talking about. So you can't just answer the question.
And you're right. And the thing is increasing their vocabulary on all of our sides. Me being in science and STEM, Jesse, you being in math, Heather, you being in English. Jesse just mentioned a word earlier, calculating the area. What should that area, the perimeter and area of where that house should be. They don't understand those words, and those are things that we have to explain to them. And so I'm loving this conversation.
Right. And if one last thing I just wanted to throw out. Your listeners, I mean, you and Jesse, but your listeners might not know, I actually got the pleasure, you guys, of following my students this year. And so I do have previous relationships built in with them, which makes it nice for this kind of school year that we're having to deal with. But my purpose of that was, I totally lost my train of thought. My purpose for that was that, and maybe other like longtime educators may not be afraid to do this either, but I know like I'm a newer teacher and I know other newer teachers get nervous about this or whatever. But one thing is that it's also helped, I think, to help the kids know that they can ask questions and that it's okay that they don't know everything, and it's okay that they may not know how to write or use certain words, is by letting them know that I don't know everything. Like, for example, today we played a Kahoot on synonyms, and there were words on there that I wouldn't have even known what the synonym was, because I never heard of the word before in my life. So we all learned something new today.
Yep. and we all do. And that's what I love, is learning from the students. Jesse and I, we were talking earlier about one of the students who we were working on a math problem, and she's like, "Doc, let me explain it to you." And I'm like, "Okay." And I let her do it. And, today this kid goes, "I think we need to test my bridge today." I'm like, "Okay." It's sitting here. And, his bridge held 60 pounds. I'm like, he goes, "Am I the greatest bridge builder of all time?" I said, "I haven't tested all the bridges yet." So, I love that spunk in our kids. And, based on what's going on with COVID-19, I'm happy to see our kids that come every day. And with that note, that's what I want to kind of talk about for just a second. I know here at Kea'au, we have kids that come every day, and then we have kids that are distance learning. So let's talk about the kids that come every day. What are some of the challenges are we having with some of the learning and the platforms, or what are some of the platforms that y'all are using to help our babies move forward? So Heather, I'm going to let you start with this one.
In ELA, we almost strictly use Google Classroom.
Mm-hmm.
For most learning purposes. We do use the Blackboard curriculum as our backbone, but the kids, the students don't navigate it any longer because they were getting really confused. So we adapt it and put it on Google Classroom. We use just YouTube videos and like vocabulary and different things like that to introduce concepts or review concepts with little songs or things to get stuck in their head. You can ask any of my students from last year, into this year. They'll all tell you that Miss Simon plays all the annoying songs for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they pretend that they hate them, but guess what? They know the stuff because that annoying song got stuck in their head all weekend. And yeah, so, we try, me and my co-teacher give the students opportunities to meet with us outside of class time, as much as we can, and as much as our schedules and emotional health will allow, for extra help or one-on-one time if they're just not comfortable asking questions. And they're doing pretty good overall, I would say. I think the biggest challenge, and this is something that I think the kids are finally starting to understand because I'm seeing a change in the last couple of weeks, is that they don't understand that we don't know they need help. Right? We've been trying to tell them all year that I can't see you doing nothing. So when I give you time to work, you have to tell me you don't understand what you're supposed to do because this isn't the classroom. I can't see you sitting at your desk not doing anything. Yeah. I don't know that I need to walk over to you and say, hey, are you having a rough day or do you not know what's going on? So that's probably the biggest challenge, I feel like. And then there's students that come to class and say they're doing work and then don't do anything. And then, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Oh, yeah. And, our kids, and not just our kids, I've heard this from my friends across Texas, from my friends in Abu Dhabi, in other countries. A lot of the students, connectivity is a problem. It is. So, glitches going off and on. It just, we weren't prepared for some of the things that we got, but we're dealing with them. And Jesse, what about you in mathematics? I think he's working with somebody. So anyway, we weren't ready for some of the things that we were going to have to do. You have your kids at home online. We've never dealt with that. We've never had to deal with that. And trying to show them how to build something or do math or do writing when they can turn their camera off. So, all right. Okay, Jesse. You're muffled a little bit.
Can you hear me good?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Sorry, I had to tell my real kids. I'm working at home. I have to keep on my computer, kids all time. Okay. But I heard the question of platforms that we use for math. I was looking for this. So we have this textbook that if we are in school, we're probably going over this curriculum, or this is a student workbook that is consumable. And because we want to, just correspond with this, there's an online version of it called the Co-Math and my.hrw. So that is one platform that we are using just so that to limit. I know there was an option with Blackboard, but like I'm using Blackboard for my sixth graders, and like there's a lot of work that I need to make changes to in order for my students in sixth grade to know how to navigate and where to find things. So I try to stay away from that for my regular. So I'm using this, the Comat version of this
Hmm.
Google Classroom. We use it for like online everyday check-ins with like one question bell work to remind them of the lessons that we did the day before or that we're about to work on. I also use Kahoot, you know,
Hmm.
and the students like they're like, "Are we doing Kahoot today?"
Oh, they love
And
that.
then, like, and even I have some students say, "Are we doing Kahoot today?" If no one's like, "Oh, we're not doing anything." And we also use a Bear Deck, so it's kind of like an interactive uh, Google slide in a way.
Hmm.
So if you're a military personnel and you heard this word "death by PowerPoint," that means you're sitting like Dr. Payton knows, like she's probably one of those who give the class before she even was the one. Like death by PowerPoint, when I see like I witnessed it in military when I was doing my training, like throughout you see all these slides with all of these writings and a person is reading off the slides. And then
Yes.
all of a sudden it's like check on learning. So you gotta stand up and make sure you can answer the question correctly. So like witnessing that and like trying to think about it because I was already a teacher going through the trainings. I was like, man, I would never do that to my students, you know. So Bear Deck is really great because the students can interact at the same time as we're going through the lessons. Like they can write
Yeah.
the answers, they can select multiple choices, they can track and drop or stuff like that. So that is one thing that we're using the Bear Deck. The students love it, but they love again still Kahoot more because it's more competitive. Like the sound of the music as they're looking at the question and the answer, like doo. So it kind of keeps them engaged here and there. So we're using Google Classroom, Kahoot, Bear Deck, and of course the COMET, the online curriculum of this to help the students keep going. The funny thing is like some students they think that we're only using Google Classroom, so when they don't show up they only enter the online bell work, but not doing the assignments on the the COMAT. So that
Yeah.
like it's on them, and But until they do join class and know this stuff, then I guarantee you every student will pass if they're all here and
Hmm.
joining
Hmm.
meetings here and there. But those are the platforms that we use. But again, death by PowerPoint. So even right now, because I just got my sergeant rank, and we're
Yeah.
trying to give out students, like I mean not students but soldiers, like from classes. Like
Congratulations.
thank you, I truly appreciate that.
Yes.
Like every time I'm about to teach a class, my soldiers, yeah, we already know it's Mr. Robert, it's Mr. Robert. So the recent class that I did, I printed out materials and then I did my soldiers like trying to put them in order. So like we're looking forward to your class every time, Sarge. So I truly appreciate the fact that doing both of this kind of helps me out in the military
Yeah.
and also in the the teaching profession.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's amazing the crossovers that you can do. And I'm looking at what we're all doing right now. We had to learn this new environment. This isn't something that, oh, okay, we're going to do online learning. We can jump right in. This has been our own personal battles, our own personal challenges. And Heather, I want to start with you because believe it or not, we only have 5 minutes left. What are some of the challenges you're dealing with to make sure you keep our babies engaged and coming back to class?
Oh. Um I honestly would say that I think the biggest challenge this year is not just connectivity like we were talking about in your last segment, but some of these kids realizing that that could be an issue. and that it's a good way to not have to show up if you don't feel like it that day. I guess personally, I feel like the students are mostly engaged, and I honestly attribute that to, like I mentioned before, the fact that they know who I am.
Yeah.
I think that this would be much more difficult and much more challenging if I did not already have relationships with 95% of the students that I'm teaching right now. So I think that factor for me helps with the engagement because they know who's on the other side of the screen. I'm not just a face talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I honestly could not imagine doing this if I did not know the students. I give my ultimate props to all of you who are trying to build relationships through a computer.
And that's me for some of them. And Jesse, what about you? Some of your challenges, and I know one of those right now you're at home.
Well, technically, when I applied for teleworking, I said this is not going to be a challenge. So, but my wife has to take the youngest to an appointment, so the three are like out there, and I say, "Good draw." Anyways, challenges this year, of course, learning, like you guys mentioned, learning at the same time while we're trying to teach them. Like, at the end of last quarter, last school year, when we going towards online learning and stuff, I didn't know how to use a Google Classroom. Like at that time, I didn't even try to use it though. So one of my professional development was to research on Google Classroom or more ways to effectively engage students or work with students in the distance learning environment. So at the beginning of the school year, I just jumped right in and create my classroom and then learn these new things as we're moving along. So like, there are those things that I didn't even find out until like later on throughout the middle of the quarter. I was like, oh, I didn't know we can do this. So that is one of my challenges, the fact that we have to learn as we continue to teach our students. And also one of my challenges, just becoming I would say like a good monster, because the students that are not showing up are failing, and one of the worst thing that one of the things that I highly dislike doing is contacting parents about that, because I want to find my ways to work with the student and eventually improve that grade up, or help that student to improve his or her grades before contacting home and there. But the fact that they're not coming to class and they decide not to come to class because they're failing makes it hard for me to talk to them before actually contacting home. But that just leaves me one option, is to contact the parents, say, oh, your student is failing in this, needs to complete these assignments. And then the parents get on the student, and then the students, get back on us like, oh, and we're like monsters to them. But, with that fact, I really don't mind being a monster now. And, they get to learn that, okay, this is the consequences that I face of not doing my work. So, I just got to, and I talked to a student one time. She actually wrote and said, Mr. Robert, please do not tell my parents, because if you tell them this, what's going to happen? So I literally wrote a letter to that student. Okay, I want you to think about this fact. You're failing now. We don't tell your parents. Later on, your parents found out that you're failing, and it's going to be on us, teacher, for not letting them know. And so we have to let you know now and let the parents know. And if they get on you, you get the disciplinaries, but, you learn from it and you improve from it. And then right after that, a couple of days later, all the assignments that were missing were submitted. And the students went from F to a PO from there. So, but yeah, those are couple of my challenges that I faced this year.
Hey, Angelo just sent me a message. Now, I've been with Fishbowl for 3 years. This is the first time I got a message that I need to wrap up. So obviously we've gone a little, because I'm always on time. I'm always on time. And so, but hey, guys, I want to thank y'all immensely for coming on to the show. And you know what? This was a marvelous discussion. And I know we have discussions all the time, because we are here at the school together, and I can call any of you and ask you about a student or ask you about a situation. And I want to thank y'all for that. And hey, I want y'all to continue to do the great stuff that y'all do, you know. And for any of the teachers out there, y'all continue to do the great stuff that you're doing this year. And, you know, find a way to make fun for you and your students to get them to want to see you every day that they have to come on. Because I know I try to do it, and they're like, uh-oh, there's Doc. She's starting over again. She's singing. She's dancing. Whatever.
I love it. I love it.
But hey, I want to thank y'all for coming on, and I will see y'all at work tomorrow and Wednesday, and then Thursday we got to cook. So we'll cook for our families. So
thank you for having me on.
Thank you for having us on, Dr. Payton. Thank you, Miss Payton.
Y'all are so welcome. Thank you.